7:21 in Trinidad and Tobago. And yes, if you're wondering, in case you didn't hear me mention it earlier, that's the Lord Kitchener talking about the West Indies' triumphs over England, not yesterday, but in the 1960s, talking about the outstanding West Indies teams under Sir Garfield Sobers. Well, he wasn't Sir then, he got his knighthood in 1974. But as we continue to celebrate the West Indies cricket victories, the men, the women, the under-19s and so on, let's change our focus here this morning. It's a business morning, a sporting morning still to come with Lester Casimir. But we're talking now about the Distinguished Leadership and Innovation Conference, which is getting ever closer. It's going to be in a week's time, April the 11th. Early bird specials, I don't know if they're still valid. It's US $875 for groups of 8. The price goes down to $850 per person. Professor Donald Sull, who's a global expert on strategy and execution in turbulent markets, will be here for the conference. We'll also have the former president of Mexico, Felipe Calderon, who is due to be, and to tell us about what he is going to contribute. We have with us criminologist Renee Cummings, who I think is relieved not to be talking about crime and fighting crime and those who are not listening to the proper initiatives related to crime. At least this morning, Renee, good morning.
Morning, Father. It's nice to be here.
Yes,
cricket morning as well,
cricket morning as well. And you used to read the sports news right here. So you know all about
for sports news.
Absolutely, you know all about that. And the footballers did extremely well last week also, so a lot of sporting news. But let's talk about this event coming up. There's been a lot of attention focused on Professor Donald Sull. Felipe Calderon, what's he going to be contributing?
Well, this is an extraordinary achievement for the Arthur Lockjack Institute. You know, it's about leadership, it's about innovation. Felipe Calderon, he was the former president of Mexico from 2006 to 2012. And I think he had the gargantuan task of transforming Mexico at a time when they had that twin crisis of a recession and crime. So this is about leadership, it's about innovation, it's about adaptability and flexibility and moving away from a rigid style of leadership and bringing to the fore what I would like to call intellectual agility. So he's coming to talk about diversification because he was the minister, what we would call the Minister of Energy, before he became the president of Mexico, as well as he is world-renowned in the sense when it comes to leadership, when it comes to being the consummate public servant. He was also the, I think, Time Magazine top 100 influential world leaders. He was World Economic Forum Statesman of the Year. So he's
I think he also submitted to Donald Trump about that wall.
Yes, he said Mexico is not paying 1 cent for that wall. That was his most recent news soundbite. So he's coming to Trinidad and Tobago, and he's really coming to speak about diversification, deregularization, and all the great things. But he's also coming to give us a little bit of perspective on crime as well, because remember, he had a full frontal attack on the anti-cartels.
And there's been a discussion about that, whether that war on the cartels has resulted in more loss of life and more destabilization of Mexico than to just leave the drug cartels to run around?
Well, I think what happened is that he came out full frontal. He brought a lot of federal force because Mexico has that federal system. Again, he speaks about an initiative that looks at crime and violence reduction called Todos Somos Juarez, which was the Ciudad Juarez. And it was particularly a pilot project that he was sort of like supreme chief over. It did see some sort of benefits. There, for 19 months, there was probably like a 76% reduction in homicide. So he does have a track record. He speaks of that a lot. He has a new book that's out that speaks about the different types of challenges. So I think he, when it comes to leadership, when it comes to innovation, when it comes to being transformational, when it comes to being transformational in a situational space, Felipe Calderon is world class.
Let's remind you as well that the event coming up on the 11th, that's next Monday, you can call 645-6700 extension 299, 645-6700 extension 299 for more information, or you can email conferencing@lockjackgsb.edu.tt. You could go to the website lockjackgsb.edu.tt/DLIC. The event, of course, is going to be held at the Hyatt Regency here in Port of Spain come next Monday. Who do you think will benefit from the contribution of Felipe Calderon? It sounds obvious, crime fighters and government individuals and so on, but in dealing with, we were just talking earlier this morning with Maxi Coffee about transforming the public service. which is another headache by itself. Thankfully, with not as much crime and chaos as it is in fighting the drug dealing and so on. But who's going to benefit from something like this on Monday?
Well, I think everyone's going to benefit. It is geared to what we call the C-suite, so the chief executive, the chief financial, all the chiefs, right? But then you have the entrepreneurs, you have graduate students, you have NGOs, anyone who's interested in leadership when it comes to business and when it comes to government. I mean, he took Mexico, given his reforms and his structural policies, from operating in a very volatile market, a very complex market, to certain levels of sustainability. He speaks about when he left office, Mexico was now the 4th in the world when it came to producing cars. The unemployment rates were much lower. The sort of structural work he did with human development, human capacity development. So this is about anyone who is interested in leadership and anyone who wants to take themselves a step further. Very forward-thinking. He's colorful, he's controversial, but he took leadership, he took the reins of leadership and he transformed a nation, and I think he has received so much, he has so much expertise and experience to share when it comes to knowledge and skill. And also, I think one of the issues that we face in Trinidad and Tobago is implementation, and he takes you from strategy to execution, dealing with that level of disequilibrium that we often find ourselves in Trinidad and Tobago. So I think definitely for the public sector, for private sector, who's not going to want to listen to Felipe Calderon?
Exactly, and I think this is what the Arthur Lovejoy Graduate School of Business is all about, especially with the DLIC, because essentially the theme, leadership and innovation. And often for many people looking on from the outside, they might say, well, okay, Professor Donald Sull will have all his brilliant, bright ideas, Felipe Calderon with all his vast experience and so on, and they might say, can we make that work here? How would someone like a Felipe Calderon be able to bring that link to say, well, okay, this is Mexico, a huge nation. I mean, the population of Mexico City alone is about 9 times the population of just Trinidad and Tobago. How does that experience benefit us here in our local space?
I think what he brings is really a very rich retrospective of Latin America over the last 10 years. He also brings what I like to call lessons learned. It's about comparative analysis. It's about understanding what's happening in the region. It's also the fact that we know that we have had a crisis in leadership when it comes to Trinidad and Tobago. So this is an opportunity to benefit from his experience, what worked and what didn't work in Mexico. I think the name of the conference is Roaring Out of Recession. This is where we are at right now. We are in a state of dealing with that twin crisis, recession and crime. This is an individual who moved Mexico from one state to a preferred state, I think anyone is going to benefit from that kind of leadership because, as you said, a very big nation, but as a leader, he stood up, he took the challenge, and he took his country where he felt his country needed to go. So he has that level of vision. When it comes to, as I said, intellectual agility, he is there. When it comes to flexibility and adaptability and all the things that make a great leader, Felipe Calderon is indeed extraordinary.
Well, Renee Cummings, thanks very much for joining
Always
us this morning. Looking forward to that contribution from Felipe Calderon. Should be quite controversial as well, depending on what he might say at that event next Monday. Also, Professor Donald Sull is going to be part of it, emerging triumphant at the Distinguished Leadership and Innovation Conference. Again, for registration information, 645-6700, extension 299. I wonder if you'll do the champion thing, boy. You never know.
You're getting very good at it, Fad.
Well, there's a lot of practice there. I mean, it doesn't take much to do that. Even if I could do it, anybody could do it.
You're doing quite a good job.
I'm trying my best. We'll take a break and continue right after this.